Угу. Да, работает.
Previously on Alan Wake, I wrote a horror story that has come true. Thomas Zane did the same in the 70s.
You will go no further.
If I continue like the Dark Presence wants me to, the story I'm writing won't save Alice. It's a horror story. No one will survive.
You knew Zane! Thomas Zane! You're the Lady of the Light in the song!
He left something behind to help me. The clicker.
Alan thought of this as he stood on the rim of Cauldron Lake, the clicker in his hand. He took a deep breath and jumped.
I can get to her now. I can finish this. I had a hangover. My head was about to explode and the light hurt my eyes. I needed my sunglasses and painkillers to dull the pain. In one of my finer moments of self-deception, I swore to quit drinking.
The New York apartment is one of my favorite locations in the game. From a story point of view, its role is of course to provide the background story for the relationship of Alan and Alice. But to me there is another important aspect as well. You see, it's of course also a homage to the New York setting of the Max Payne games. And my first 3 years here at Remedy were spent working on those games. Now that we're working on Alan Wake with its Pacific Northwest theme style, that's something really different. And so for me, the location of New York apartment was really a wonderful chance to sort of touch back upon those old Max Payne days and sort of go back to my roots. It's kind of like picking up an old tool and seeing if you still remember how to use it.
Точно не помню, но это вроде на кого-то отсылка. Два пистолета золотых. Красивый
I'd been a
картина.
guest on the talk show the previous night, talking about my latest book. The show was supposed to be waiting for me on our
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Harry Gallet Show.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. We have a great show tonight. I've been talking with the best-selling author Alan Wake about his new book, The Sudden Stop. Yeah, good read. Go buy it. No, it is a good read. Look, I'm gonna be honest here. Is that wise? No, but I'm gonna do it anyway. I got people who give me the lowdown on books. I'm a busy guy. But this one, I actually read from cover to cover. I mean, I'm a big fan. Wow, thanks. Now, this might be a spoiler for those who haven't read the book yet. Based on the sales figures,
Hey, honey.
two people
Did you watch
out
the
there
show?
who haven't read the
I didn't say anything stupid if that's what you want to know.
Okay, Grumpy. You want an aspirin or something?
Are you going to start with me about drinking now?
You know what? Go back to sleep, Alan.
What? Now you can't even talk to me?
Well, this morning I was angry because you said you'd be home at midnight and you showed up at 7 a.m. and passed out in mid-sentence. Now I'm over it. Are you angry?
This goddamn tour. It's gotten out of hand.
Oh, honey. It's almost over, right? We can get back to normal, and you can start writing again.
I'm sorry, honey.
Alan, you're not thinking straight. Just take a shower and go back to bed, huh?
Yeah, you're right, honey. I'm sorry. Once this is over, let's go away together. A vacation. Just you and me. Some peace and quiet. Somehow, the clicker was the key to the cabin. I had to return to Cauldron Lake to save Alice. I'm going back to the lake to finish this. I'm going to write an ending to the story in the manuscript on my own terms, to make it all right.
Why can't you just write it here?
The last page is still in the typewriter. I need to read it first. Everything needs to be just right. Zane tried to cut some corners, and it didn't end well.
Okay, ready when you are.
I'm sorry, Sarah, but I need to do this alone. Barry, take her gun. Miss Weaver, close the door when I leave.
Good luck, Al.
See you later. When I got out, it was warm and sunny. I'd flicked the switch of the clicker. Had it done this? I didn't stop to question it. I had to take advantage of the sunlight to get to the lake. On Zane's page, I'd stood on the rim of Cauldron Lake, about to use the clicker. That's where I was headed. Alone, in daylight, surrounded by the beauty of the Pacific Northwest landscape, it was hard not to let doubt creep in one last time. I could still chalk everything up to a dream, a delusion. I had enough imagination to make up something like this, having been in the cabin all this time.
One question that's often asked about games these days is open world or linear. They are the two extremes of the same scale, and both have their pros and cons. Open world is of course all about the freedom of movement. You can go where you want and do what you want. And that's cool in itself, but by nature it fights against the traditional storytelling. Whereas linear gameplay fits storytelling very well, but that can get a bit constricted at times if the path is too narrow. We always want to tell a meaningful and compelling story, and we didn't want to compromise that in any way. But at the same time, we had lots of different scenarios and beautiful nature, and we didn't want to throw that away either. So what we did was intersperse it between the important story locations. So there is plenty of chance to explore your surroundings and plenty of cool stuff to find if you do.
Как я знаю, это финальный эпизод. И есть два дополнения в году.
touch me. There was a link between us, always would be. I could feel its presence again.
I will kill your wife.
We're nearing the end of the story here. At this point, we pretty much know the answers to most of the major questions, such as what happened to Alice, where did the manuscript come from, and so forth. All that remains for Wake now is to make his final run into the heart of darkness and make his final sacrifice.
The Dark Presence was no longer trying to capture the writer so he could create the ending it wanted. The writer knew too much. He was too strong. And he carried a weapon left behind by Thomas Zane, something that could hurt it. Now, the darkness was doing everything in its power to simply stop the writer from ever reaching Cauldron Lake and the dark place it came from.
He said goodbye to his best friend. He's not really expecting to come back from this one, but he's willing to do that to save Alice. I'm not really sure if you could call Wake a heroic character as such. You know, he doesn't really, he doesn't have that square-jawed look or anything, but when it's all said and done, I really don't think he's a coward.
Люблю ж я усложнять жизнь.
Agent Nightingale has a drinking problem and his judgment is poor, as you can tell, but he is after a Wake for a reason. I know we don't really go into it very much here, but if you're seeing this, you're probably also in the possession of the Alan Wake Files book that comes with the limited collector's edition, and we kind of open his backstory up a little bit more there. In fact, if you look carefully around this room here, this Nightingale's motel room of course, you can see those very files sticking out of the air vent. We have a lot of little hooks like that in the game. At one point, Nightingale actually flew out of Brightfort with the rest of the gang and made his way to the power plant, but we kind of had to cut that part out for pacing reasons. It just wasn't working very well. It was a shame, but it's just one of those kill your darlings things. But at least he makes it through this game alive, as you know if you look through the ending cinematic of the game. So hopefully we'll see a little bit more of him in the future. We kind of have a soft spot for him.
Based on the signature in the motel register, Agent Nightingale had stayed here, in room number 2.
начинаем. Я фиг знает, как это выходить.
As Wake continues towards the conclusion of the story, of this story, we had the chance to create more outlandish sequences, more wilder places to really amp up the action. This field filled with burning wreckage was great, and I hope you actually find and you see the possessed monster truck. He's been around different locations during the development, but I'm happy he finally found a place to actually be here amidst all the carnage.
хорошо их услышал. Надо было световую кинуть. Окей.
You can learn about nature and yourself.